Chapter 14. Now after 2 days it was the Passover, and the feast of unleavened bread. And the chief priests and the scribes were seeking how, after arresting him by stealth, they could kill him. For they said, Not at the feast, lest there be an uproar by the people. And while he was at Bethany, in the house of Simon the leper, as he was reclining for a meal, a woman came holding an alabaster flask of very costly perfumed oil of genuine nard. After breaking the alabaster flask, she poured it out on his head. But some were expressing indignation to one another. Why has there been this waste of perfumed oil? For this perfumed oil could have been sold for more than 300 denarii and given to the poor. And they began to scold her. But Jesus said, Leave her alone. Why do you cause trouble for her? She has done a good deed to me. For the poor you always have with you, and you can do good for them whenever you want, but you do not always have me. She has done what she could. She has anointed my body beforehand for burial. And truly I say to you, wherever the gospel is proclaimed in the whole world, what she has done will also be told in memory of her. And Judas Iscariot, who was one of the 12, went to the chief priests in order to betray him to them. And when they heard this, they were delighted, and promised to give him money. And he began seeking how he could betray him conveniently. And on the first day of the feast of unleavened bread, when they sacrificed the Passover lamb, his disciples said to him, Where do you want us to go and prepare, so that you can eat the Passover? And he sent 2 of his disciples, and said to them, Go into the city, and a man carrying a jar of water will meet you. Follow him. And wherever he enters, say to the master of the house, The teacher says, Where is my guest room, where I may eat the Passover with my disciples? And he will show you a large upstairs room, furnished and ready, and prepare for us there. And the disciples went out and came into the city, and found everything just as he had told them. And they prepared the Passover. And when it was evening, he arrived with the 12. And while they were reclining at table and eating, Jesus said, Truly I say to you that one of you, who is eating with me, will betray me. They began to be distressed, and to say to him one by one, Surely not I. But he said to them, It is one of the 12, the one who is dipping bread into the bowl with me. For the Son of Man is going just as it is written about him. But woe to that man by whom the Son of Man is betrayed. It would be better for him if that man had not been born. And while they were eating, he took bread, and after giving thanks, he broke it, and gave it to them, and said, Take it, this is my body. And after taking the cup, and giving thanks, he gave it to them, and they all drank from it. And he said to them, This is my blood of the covenant, which is poured out for many. Truly I say to you that I will never drink of the fruit of the vine any longer until that day when I drink it new in the kingdom of God. And after they had sung the hymn, they went out to the Mount of Olives. And Jesus said to them, You will all fall away, because it is written, I will strike the shepherd, and the sheep will be scattered. But after I am raised, I will go ahead of you into Galilee. But Peter said to him, Even if they all fall away, certainly I will not. And Jesus said to him, Truly I say to you that today, this night, before the rooster crows twice, you will deny me 3 times. But he kept saying emphatically, If it is necessary for me to die with you, I will never deny you. And they all were saying the same thing also. And they came to a place named Gethsemane, and he said to his disciples, Sit here while I pray. And he took along Peter and James and John with him, and he began to be distressed and troubled. And he said to them, My soul is deeply grieved to the point of death. Remain here, and stay awake. And going forward a little, he fell to the ground, and began to pray that, if it were possible, the hour would pass from him. And he said, Abba, Father, all things are possible for you. Take away this cup from me. Yet not what I will, but what you will. And he came and found them sleeping. And he said to Peter, Simon, are you sleeping? Were you not able to stay awake 1 hour? Stay awake and pray that you will not enter into temptation. The spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak. And again he went away and prayed, saying the same thing. And again he came and found them sleeping, for they could not keep their eyes open, and they did not know what to reply to him. And he came the third time and said to them, Are you still sleeping and resting? It is enough. The hour has come. Behold, the Son of Man is being betrayed into the hands of sinners. Get up, let us go. Behold, the one who is betraying me is approaching. And immediately, while he was still speaking, Judas, one of the 12, arrived, and with him a crowd with swords and clubs from the chief priests and the scribes and the elders. Now the one who was betraying him had given them a sign, saying, The one whom I kiss, he is the one. Arrest him and lead him away under guard. And when he arrived, he came up to him immediately, and said, Rabbi, and kissed him. So they laid hands on him and arrested him. But a certain one of the bystanders, drawing his sword, struck the slave of the high priest, and cut off his ear. And Jesus answered and said to them, Have you come out with swords and clubs as against a robber to arrest me? Every day I was with you in the temple courts teaching, and you did not arrest me. But this has happened in order that the Scriptures would be fulfilled. And they all abandoned him and fled. And a certain young man was following him, clothed only in a linen cloth on his naked body. And they attempted to seize him, but he left behind the linen cloth and fled naked. And they led Jesus away to the high priest, and all the chief priests and the elders and the scribes came together. And Peter followed him from a distance, right inside, into the courtyard of the high priest. And he was sitting with the officers and warming himself by the fire. Now the chief priests and the whole Sanhedrin were looking for testimony against Jesus in order to put him to death, and they did not find it. For many gave false testimony against him, and their testimony was not consistent. And some stood up and began to give false testimony against him, saying, We heard him saying, I will destroy this temple made by hands, and within 3 days I will build another not made by hands. And their testimony was not even consistent about this. And the high priest stood up in the midst of them and asked Jesus, saying, Do you not reply anything? What are these people testifying against you? But he was silent and did not reply anything. Again the high priest asked him and said to him, Are you the Christ, the Son of the Blessed One? And Jesus said, I am, and you will see the Son of Man sitting at the right hand of the power, and coming with the clouds of heaven. And the high priest tore his clothes and said, What further need do we have of witnesses? You have heard the blasphemy. What do you think? And they all condemned him as deserving death, and some began to spit on him, and to cover his face, and to strike him with their fists, and to say to him, Prophesy! And the officers received him with slaps in the face. And while Peter was below in the courtyard, one of the female slaves of the high priest came up. And when she saw Peter warming himself, she looked intently at him and said, You also were with the Nazarene Jesus. But he denied it, saying, I neither know nor understand what you mean. And he went out into the gateway. And a rooster crowed. And the female slave, when she saw him, began to say again to the bystanders, This man is one of them. But he denied it again. And after a little while, again the bystanders began to say to Peter, You really are one of them, because you also are a Galilean, and your accent shows it. And he began to curse and to swear with an oath, I do not know this man whom you are talking about. And immediately a rooster crowed for the second time. And Peter remembered the statement, how Jesus had said to him, Before the rooster crows twice, you will deny me 3 times. And throwing himself down, he began to weep.